Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, super excited. I have a fellow Ontarian here, Chris Stones, who is the founder and CEO of Elite Window Cleaning out of Kingston, Ontario. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a beautiful day here in Ontario. As you know, the sun's shining. It's the middle of August, and happy to be doing this today.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So for our listeners who haven't heard about Elite Window Cleaning yourself, what are you all about?
So what we're all about is, I guess that story goes back a couple years to, a lot of years back to 2006. I was working in the music industry actually, and had spent the majority of my life working towards a career, and I wasn't feeling a ton of fulfillment in that career. So I decided to pivot and just drop what I'd been working towards for so many years and just figure out something to do to pay the bills. And that's kind of where window cleaning entered the picture. I was living in Vancouver, British Columbia. High-rise window cleaners were working downtown, and I saw them and I thought, wow, what a great way to spend a summer. I'll just do that and figure out what's next. So I waited for this guy to get to the ground. I talked to him. He hired me on the spot, even though looking back, that was a crazy way to ask for a job. But I began cleaning windows in Vancouver in that summer. And right away, there was something about the industry that I loved. I still to this day can't put my finger on it. I think it's around the instant gratification of doing something that has such a dramatic outcome so quickly. And I just fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the job. I still wasn't career minded around it. And I cleaned windows in Vancouver for a couple of years. And really over those years, I saw that the industry hadn't had a meaningful change really since the invention of the squeegee, which happened in the 30s. And everything, this was early 2000s, so tech was kind of infiltrating all these industries, and the window cleaning industry just seemed to be status quo. And that's when, the entrepreneurial side of me said, why don't I start a business? Why don't I try to change what window cleaning is? Why don't I try to take this super unsexy business and flip it on its head and build a little business for myself? So after working for companies across the country and as far away as Australia, in 2012, I decided to move back to Kingston and start a business. I had a borrowed car, I had a bucket, and I had experience in the industry. So I began Elite Window Cleaning, and that was 2012. And from that day, my whole trajectory was to deconstruct and rebuild what a modern window cleaning company looked like. So we started with the tools really quickly. We had a lot of traction out of the gates, and the business started growing. But it was limited in the efficiency by the use of lifts and ladders. There was only so fast my employees could climb a ladder. There was only so fast they were able to wash a window with a squeegee. So we started looking at purified water technology and carbon fiber poles to reach up to, six stories, but still give that perfect clean window to the customer, because at the end of the day, that was our deliverable. And so over the next 6 years, I developed a system that allowed our techs to reach up to 6 stories from the ground and deliver perfectly clean windows every single time. And we were just growing like crazy. And we were able to not only do the job more safely, but we were able to do it much more efficiently. And so rather than increase our margin through the efficiencies gained, we thought it would be a, this crazy idea to basically take our static margins that we were happy with pre-technology and enter the market at a price point that was a value proposition that customers just couldn't say no to. So we entered the market. I guess this was 2016 where we launched this campaign, where it was $98 to clean all the windows on the exterior of your home, on any home up to 2,800 square feet. And when we came into the market with that, it was just like wide open blue ocean. All these people that were just living with dirty windows, all of a sudden it was $100 to get their exterior windows cleaned, and the business just blew up. We had been trying to figure out how we were going to get to that $1 million mark in a city with only 160,000 population washing windows, and we blew past it. It was just it, we could, as fast as we could staff, we could keep up, and we went, wow, we're really onto something here. And we'd been in a vacuum chamber where, to us, this was normal at this point. The efficiencies gained, the way that we washed windows, the pricing all around it, this was just normal, but it didn't exist anywhere else on the planet. And that was where we went, wow, let's look at franchising. Let's take this to other markets. So in 2018, we put together a franchise disclosure document. We built out the entire franchise program, and we really looked at, from a window cleaner's perspective, because that's where I was coming from, what would hedge the bet for our franchise owners in the future to be as productive, as efficient, and as profitable as we'd seen here. And so not only did we work on the front end with the technology to wash the windows, we spent probably more time building a back office support system with a centralized call center to take all the bookings and have a really, really high conversion rate. And we built this beautiful, for lack of a better term, like a beautiful franchise system that could stand on its own legs. And we're fortunate enough right out of the gates to have 4 partners in markets we were interested in jump on board, and just see the exact same thing kind of roll out in their market. That simple customer acquisition where the price balance was perfect, and kind of brings us to today. We're currently looking for partners across the country. We're going to try to really stick in Canada for the next year or two to kind of give back to the country that's given us so much. And yeah, we're just really excited about where this business is going right now.
Very cool. So I like how you're not being greedy with your profits. On the flip side of that, how are you, I guess, making sure it's not a race to the bottom either?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And honestly, that's one of the first questions we get in the discovery process with new partners. So $98 is our price point for exterior homes up to 2,800 square feet. One, I should clearly articulate, it's not a loss leader. We have a margin that we make off those 98s that's super healthy, and probably even better than what we were doing with traditional methods. And then there's a whole host of add-on services, so screen cleaning and interior window cleaning or siding cleaning. So your average ticket price is much higher in the FDD than the $98 price point. But what that price point does is it gives access to a type of customer that just wasn't available using traditional methods. So, if every 100,000 people, there's 1,000 who might get their windows clean, the breadth of that 1,000 is just more. Like, it's, you go into these cul-de-sacs, most homes are 2 stories, most people don't own a ladder, most people don't want to climb up on the roof. So we've really found a solution for a common problem that's always existed. It's just the barrier of entry was a little bit too high. So that's kind of, to answer your question in a roundabout way, is the profitability. It's not a race to the bottom. If all the dominoes are set up to fall, and they fall the same way every single time, and for our franchise owners and for us in our corporate shop, we go into these markets, and it does, there's just no one that competes on that level. So it becomes a market dominating opportunity pretty quick. And then you move into the commercial space with universities, and that's where the safety element really shines, is in universities and hospitals and healthcare facilities and all these places that are mandated to have their windows cleaned, all of a sudden have a safer option to have that done. So we kind of enter the market in the residential space and then expand into the commercial space as the business matures over time.
I like it. I like it. And one thing I do want to call out and ask for you is, you know, that $98, it's kind of like that foot in the door, and then you have a lot of opportunities to upsell them, right? As you
Yeah.
mentioned, the, you know, the screen cleaning and such. So I guess how are you finding and identifying these upsell opportunities?
So we at first were thinking what a lot of other brands in this space think, how do we just tack more and more and more on? And what we realized really quickly was that really dilutes the offering, and it makes your laser just super unfocused. So we wanted to stick on window cleaning. So we deal with the windows, the tracks, the screens, I guess gutter cleaning and siding cleaning if necessary, but we didn't want to get into the dryer vent or the carpet shampoo or some of these other services.
Mhm.
And when you look at the way that our call center functions, so we have a centralized call center here in Kingston, and every agent in that call center is trained to convert window cleaning customers. So they don't have to learn about, the intricacies of all these other um, service offerings. And I'm super proud to say that we convert more than 80% of incoming calls on the first call. So that is what really, really drives home that our value proposition is exactly where it needs to be. Higher than 80% of people who are calling. And if you think about it, it is common sense. If your value proposition is where you want it to be, if you're calling to get your windows cleaned and somebody says, yeah, this is the price and that's the price you were expecting, you're not going to say, okay, well, I'm going to call five more people. I'm going to waste a week of my time. It's one of those things where it becomes a no-brainer for the client. And we've just built systems around um, transactional ease for every step of the process.
Wow. That is absurdly wild in a good way, that 80% conversion rate.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, how do you find I guess the marketing economics of it? You know, with that kind of low price point for, you know, a resident to get a window cleaning, and then the upsell on that. I guess, like, how are you balancing that out?
So for us, again, because the value prop is so dialed, it's an awareness campaign more than it is. We don't go seeking conversions. Like, obviously, you need to have an element of pay per click on AdWords. You need to do a little bit of that. But for us, it's been things like radio and billboards, and it's just complete awareness. When we run a radio campaign that just hammers home, we can clean all your windows on the exterior of your home for $98 over and over. It becomes it when that person is in that space to purchase their window cleaning, it's a no-brainer. Again, I come back to having your value proposition absolutely dialed, and then just raising awareness on the need.
Very cool. So I'm a digital marketing nerd myself. So offline, you know, specifically like print, billboard, radio has always interested me. So how have you been tracking attribution for these, say, radio campaigns that have been crushing it?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
So radio campaigns, as you know, coming from a marketing background, are incredibly hard to track, especially when we don't run sales. We don't run, promos, so there's nothing for us to tangibly cite. What we see is the difference in, radio turns on every spring and call volume just goes hockey stick through the roof. And we're running at near capacity. We grew 30% in 2020. We're growing, targeting for another close to 30 in 2021. It's working, and it's one of those scenarios of, yes, it's hard to track, especially when you compare it to the digital funnels that exist. But if it's working and clients are referencing that they heard it on the radio, oftentimes they'll say, I Googled you, but how did you know our name to Google us? We kind of try to attribute that either to radio or to the billboard activities in certain areas.
Mhm.
And speaking as the owner of corporate locations as well, not just the franchisor, is radio got oversaturated in the 90s and forgotten about somewhere around 2010. You can't get cheaper impressions than the radio right now. And the type of person that listens to the radio is the type of person that buys our service. So this might not work for everyone, but our kind of core customer is the type of person to listen to the local country station or the local news talk radio. So for us, it's been a tremendous medium.
Very cool. And how did you flag radio as a channel? Hey, I want to test it out. And then all of a sudden you're going gangbusters with it.
So how we tested it out originally is in 2018, we really wanted to prove concept outside of Kingston. So we went into 18 markets across the province of Ontario, corporately. And our goal was to prime these markets and sell them as franchise opportunities once with an existing customer base, once we'd proven that this wasn't a unicorn that just happened in Kingston. We went into those markets and we were looking at, you're going into 18 markets. This is a big, big launch. This was a big, expensive endeavor. And we wanted to make sure that we knew that impressions were the game for us to get the message out. And literally it came down to dollars and cents. In that many markets, the lowest cost impression that we could acquire was radio. And so we went for it, and it just blew everything off the hinges. It just went crazy. So we've kind of stuck with it ever since, not being blind to every other medium. We advertise, my CMO here has us in pretty well everywhere that you could advertise. But again, radio is just great impressions. And I love telling people that because it's forgotten about, it's kind of seems like a dinosaur in this day and age, but yeah, it seems to work really well for us.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So you mentioned, expanding to these 18 territories, actually proving out the model and then reselling it. What was your process for choosing these 18 territories?
So what we wanted to do was we wanted to prove that this worked. And that was 18 in Canada. We also did 5 in Florida.
Mhm.
But the 18 in Canada under the brand Elite Window Cleaning, we wanted to prove that this could work in Toronto, where you have 15 million people or however many people live in Toronto. We wanted to go into some smaller markets like Sudbury, where there's sub 100,000. And we wanted to compare them apples to apples all the way across. So our criteria was, is this market growing? Is this market seen? I know it was a couple of years ago, so I can't be quoted on the number, but the amount of population growth was actually what we were looking. Are people building new homes? Are people moving there? Is this market expanding? That was kind of our metric. And it was really, really static. The interesting part was the buyer looked the same across the board. They were not necessarily the luxury service. They were your dual income, maybe kids, somewhere between 45 and 65. And every demo, that was who responded best to what we were offering. And then the other way that we determined it is we actually did 36 home shows where we got face to face across the province with the people who would be buying the services. So to cite an example, the Toronto National Home Show, we went into that show expecting to have, it's the largest home show in the country. We expected to have a good return. We closed 1,100 jobs at that show. If we had an opportunity in the foresight to know that it was going to hit that hard, we would have run 3 booths because our salespeople just couldn't close as many jobs as people were trying to book. So that was kind of like that moment. Like I can remember tallying at the end, going through the day sheets with everybody and going like, this works. This works. We had people coming to that show from Barrie, from London, from Hamilton, from St. Catharines, all over the province. And it really, really proved that face to face, you could see it in people's eyes that the value we were offering for the price point was a home run. So that was kind of the way that we selected was, did people in this area resonate with it? If yes, pedal to the metal. If no, let's fulfill our obligations for the people that have requested a cleaning and fold up shop. And unfortunately, we didn't fold up shop anywhere. And I guess not unfortunately, but for our logistical team, it was unfortunate because we were expecting to not have such a home run in every city. And we ended up rolling out across 18, and it was a really, really crazy year for logistics around here.
I can imagine. So Chris, switching gears a little, one question I always like to ask is, what advice would you give someone just starting out as a franchisor?
So I consider myself just starting out. I'm still super young in the industry. And I also still consider myself a window cleaner. So I think my advice would be know your industry. That's why I consider myself a window cleaner. Yes, I don't go on the tools. Yes, I'm a CEO and founder of a multi-unit franchise system. But if you lose touch with what you're trying to franchise from that ground level, I understand it. I'm the smartest person in the room when it comes to this specific topic. I think that's where franchise systems start to go off the rails. And my second is make sure everyone you're working with is aligned with your vision. One thing, every franchisor who starts a system is going to have a lot of interest from people who want to sell you services, and you're going to need advice. You are going to need consultants, and you are going to need good lawyers, and you are going to need to spend money on that. But make sure, however you do your litmus test on whether somebody is genuine, make sure that you are wholly confident because I always say, if your lawyer doesn't want to buy a franchise in his hometown because he or she thinks it's such a great idea, might not be the best lawyer for your system. Your consultant should see it and go, God, I got to put this in this is such a great idea. I got to run with this myself. That's when you have the right people. So for me as a new franchisor, it is surrounding yourself with people who are aligned with the business from a fundamental standpoint. They get it very, very deeply. That would be the biggest piece of advice I have.
Great advice. And going back to point one about, you still consider yourself a window cleaner. How have you been managing that transition from, like hands-on operator, window cleaner to now CEO and, as a franchisor, your real customer base are your franchisees?
Yeah, so that for me, that transition was relatively easy from when I compare it against what I hear my peers who have gone through the same say. I'm an inherently social person, so the franchisee franchisor relationship is just soul food for me. I want to talk about your business. I want to know what's going on. I want to riff on ideas. The hardest part was from growing something that was my baby. I started Elite Window Cleaning with absolutely nothing and grew it to where it is today, was handing off control. And there's days where I still struggle with that. My ops team beat budget every month. They crush. These people here are such dedicated, amazing people who I would blindly trust with this business. But there's this little part of me that wants to still exercise control, even though I trust them. So I would say that that's probably the theme that most franchisors, circle around, is relinquishing control on the operations so that you can focus on making sure your franchisees are profitable, making sure the systems are working the way that you'd expect. Because, I personally think there's a certain amount of honorability that comes along with being a franchisor. Is you're making promises and you are, telling people that if they do, A and B, C and D will follow. And if you get off, your focus gets off that promise, I think that's a really dangerous spot for everyone involved. And it's a really important relationship to just be so honorable to your word. And I think that's what gave franchising such a bad rap in the 90s. Is it became a front end profit center with a low back end return. So that's I guess how I feel on that.
Great. I love it. I absolutely love it. Anyways, Chris, I could chat with you genuinely all day about this, but I want to be respectful of your schedule. So with that being said, I do like to end all of the episodes with something that I call the lightning round. A few fast-paced questions coming at you. Are you ready?
I am born ready for this.
Awesome. First question, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
My favorite tool or app that I cannot live without would be our CRM Vonago. It is a CRM built for home services brands. It was built by an insanely intelligent person that knows exactly what leaders in home services brands need, from reporting and information to crew tracking and scheduling. So if Vonago evaporated from the planet tomorrow, I think I would have such a tough time replacing it.
Very cool. Next question, what is your favorite book?
So my favorite book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. My favorite business book is probably going to sound cliche, but The E-Myth and Good to Great are just two books that I think anyone transitioning from a technician to an owner need to really read, reread, and reread again.
I couldn't agree with you more. They're classic books. All right, next one. Who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
This one, franchise leader that I look up to, there's a lot of them. One would be John DeHart from Nurse Next Door. John DeHart built a franchise system off a vision for giving back and making a really symbiotic relationship for his franchisees. And I really look up to him as a leader in this industry. So that would be my answer, John DeHart.
Great choice. All right, Chris, last question. I promise. Where can people find out more about you and your franchise?
So the best place to find out more about Elite or myself would be for the brand, elitewindowcleaning.ca. We're on Facebook, Elite Window Cleaning, and LinkedIn as well. And for myself, probably LinkedIn would be the best. Chris Stonis, or search Elite Window Cleaning. I try to put up a lot of thoughts and blogs and musings about the transition between being an owner and a franchisor up there. So I can be reached anywhere, and I pretty much respond to anyone who reaches out. So if any listeners have any questions about growing a home service brand, customer service brand, don't hesitate.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And you dropped a ton of knowledge that I know listeners are going to absolutely love.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Jordan. I really appreciated this, man. It was really fun.
Of course. Bye for now.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.